And let's move on to chapter 2, man, and part 2 of the unveiling. And then we're going to call this the power of giving, right? And I want to primarily talk about giving up. You know that word that all us, we all scared of sacrifice, right? Sacrificing. I want you to look at it like this, right? When you're sacrificing on the spiritual side, it's not about what you lose, right? It's about what you gain. When we think about sacrificing right now, we think about giving up something. We think about letting go something that hurt you. But in the spiritual sense, it's not really about losing out. It's about like a trade, so to speak. You're trading stuff like your ego, your comfort, your personal agenda, and then you gain something far more valuable. But our human nature, man, we fight against giving things up. We see that as a loss. But on the spiritual side of things, right? It's not a loss, right? Every genuine act of sacrifice, everything you do with love, right, and devotion, it creates an empty space, and it quickly get filled with something more, bigger or something more holier. I'll tell you, like, the biggest, profound sacrifice you're gonna have to make is gonna be your ego. 'Cause your ego constantly want, comfort. Your ego constantly want praise. Your ego constantly wants to be in control. When you start putting God's, purpose before your ego's demands, you give up, personal gains for peace. And that's that divine exchange that I'm talking about, that trade. Let's go to some of the stories in the Bible, right? Let's talk about Abraham, right? He was willing to sacrifice Isaac, trusting God completely in doing so. That wasn't punishment, right? That was a powerful test in the transformation. Right, they gave up their worldly lives, their reputation, their safety, and in return they gained a profound wisdom. Right, they gained the ability to do amazing things and an unbreakable connection to God. Right, Abraham is we know, like, his promise to Abraham. Let's move along. Let's go to Jesus. Right, he was sacrificed. He sacrificed himself, right, for the redemption of humanity, and for that, what happened? Forever, the divine exchange, and that's what we're no different. We have to sacrifice as well. Let me wrap this up, right? What does it look like in our everyday life, right? It happens in our everyday choices, right? It's choosing to be patient instead of getting angry. It's being generous instead of being greedy, right? It's forgiving instead of holding a grudge, or helping out people without seeking attention. You see what I'm saying? Each of them moments, right, in a small laying down of our lower self, right, it connects us with our higher self. And, I'll use a Bible reference here and there, man. Matthew 6:3-4, right? It's about giving it up in secret. That's what it's about. It says, but when you give to the needy, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, right? So the giving may be in secret. That's the start of, the divine exchange that lifts our spirit and deepens our connection to God. You got to give some up. So what does sacrificing look like? It looks like giving up lust. It looks like giving up, the pen, the needle, whatever the case may be, man. You know what you have to give up in your life. But ultimately, man, like, understanding sacrifice, right, as like a divine exchange or a trade, it frees you from fear, right? And it empowers you to embrace, that sacred path. Sacrificing helps us, grow from our human self into our, divine potential. Hey, I hope this helps somebody. I'm moving on to the next chapter. See you then.